Hi, everyone. Welcome again to yet another episode of Data as the Fourth Pillar, the Board and CXO podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Shameek, who's joining us on the podcast.
Shameek Ghosh is the CEO of TrustTrace. We'll hear about his company when we talk to him in the podcast. He has co founded the company with three of his other co founders. And really heartening, Shameek has been a friend of mine living in Stockholm, and really happy to see him closely initiating and developing TrustTrace. So, without further ado, let's jump into the episode and talk to Shameek. Hi, Shameek. Welcome to the episode.
Hello, hello.
Thanks a lot for joining us. To kick off, Shamik, for the benefit of our listeners, if you could introduce yourself, what you do, and about your company as well.
Sure. I'm Shameek. I'm the CEO and co-founder of TrustTrace. Originally from India. I've been living now in Stockholm for the last 16 years there, and living happily with one wife, two kids, a dog. That's the story. But yeah, and in my role as the CEO of TrustTrace, we have been now in the stage of growing the company, scaling up the business across the globe. So it is quite hectic in that fashion also. So good fun during the day, good fun in the evening and the weekends also, I would say.
Awesome, Shameek. So, would love to know about TrustTrace a little more. Can you explain a little bit the journey right from what was the idea and the thought and the white space you saw in the market to where it is today? Could you give a little bit of a brief?
Yeah. I think in hindsight, I can all sound very, very knowledgeable, but I think the white space found us rather than us finding the white space, I would say that. I used to work for a very long time between 2000 to 2015 with HCL, and that's where I used to work with Sujay also there. Between 2015 to 2019, I spent time with Global Logic on the digital services side of it there. And in that period, I had actually done my exec MBA. And in exec MBA, you tend to do a capstone project, and I had picked up an entrepreneurial project because I had some midlife crisis. Said that, okay, let me try out something that corporate life is not able to fulfill. And it was very an exciting journey because we had set up an online art market in a period of around 5 months actually, and took some European street artists, their works to Singapore for an art fair. It was a totally different world there, where there only I found out that the art is important, but the story of the artist is more important than the art there. And the story of the artist needs authenticity and provenance. And that time, blockchain was very, very uh, like what AI is now. It was blockchain was at that point in time, and then coming from the tech background, I said that I will take this to the new heights, and I will conquer the world with blockchain. Is what the idea came in. But because it was a capstone project, my teammates were not very interested in taking it forward. And with that idea, I actually spoke with few of my ex colleagues in HCL, and then we started TrustTrace. So idea started very simply that, okay, story or provenance of anything, any product or services is critical. And because through that, you're able to tell a much bigger, a holistic story than just the experience at the end of it, right? Uh, we tried it out with initially because my idea came from art market. We tried with the art market, but it was very evident. And in fact, when I met a few of the auction houses in Stockholm and Copenhagen, they said that, guys, you have got great ideas, but if you want to be in art market, move to Paris, London, or New York, and get very close to Christie's and Sotheby's. Neither did we have the personality, nor did we have that kind of money to do all that. Then we said, okay, let's pivot it towards some other industry. And that time, I think there were some two, three big events that happened in the consumer products industry. So if you remember, there was this Rana Plaza fire in Bangladesh. So there were suddenly, and they found that there was all this Gap and all these big brands product were lying there, and almost 180 or 200 odd people had died in that fire. So then people wanted to know where the product is made, how the product is being made became a very critical part of it. And also around that time in Europe, there was this horse meat scandal. So people had found traces of horse meat in the whatever meat or portions of meat in the supermarket. Both of them directed towards the story of traceability. So we shifted from provenance story to the traceability story and started targeting the market. And fortunately, what happened is that we met up with a couple of key figures in the Swedish fashion industry who were a sustainability first brands. So, for example, you have Houdini, Philippa K, Iceberg, these kind of people, and they were miles and miles ahead in their approach, in their thinking. They were born sustainability first kind of a companies, brands that they were sitting on. We were four co-founders. None of us came from the fashion background, but they sat with us and explained what are the challenges the fashion industry faces. In fact, Houdini's CEO, Eva Carlson, works very, very closely with the Stockholm Resilience Center and their planetary boundaries approach. So they sat with us, explained what is this planetary boundaries, why do we have Earth Day, what is the significance of it, very passionately, right? And she then explained to us that the biggest challenge is that nobody knows the supply chain. There is no spotlight on supply chain. Everybody is focused in understanding what time does the consumer wake up, what time do they have breakfast, what time are they sleeping, but nobody focuses on the core of the business, which is your supply chain. And hence they explained how do they run complete responsible production processes, plus how do they collect this humongous quantity of data in the platform. And in fact, they were not very tech savvy. So they were actually using Excel sheets, but it is because a small company, very responsibly driven, they were going through the grind every time that they had a season approaching. We said, this problem we understand because we come from tech background. We know how to digitalize Excel into workflows is our competency. So with that understanding, we started going, we dipped our feet into this. We got some support from the Swedish innovation agency called Vinnova as in terms of grants. So money came from them, knowledge came from the partner brands, and we brought the tech power with us. And then that's how the journey started. And that's why I say that the white space found us. Initially, we were working very closely with these sustainability first kind of companies, and somehow the word started making rounds. And then bigger companies who were now very concerned with the different European regulations as well as US non-tariff barriers that were coming, they got very, very concerned about it. And then they started looking, hey, we are also very interested in knowing our deep tiers. Most of the companies are very competent in understanding. They have very good, strong relationship with their direct suppliers. What they don't know is what happens beyond the tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four. And the farther you go in a fashion industry, the more complicated thing. If you look at just to give a background of the fashion industry, it is a very simple t-shirt or the sweater that I am wearing, right? But what goes behind it, the raw wool will be coming from one part of the world. The cotton will be coming from some other part of the world. There is some amount of synthetic fiber which will be coming another part of the world from different supply chains coming in, getting blended together. Then you move from some 4 or 5 steps till you reach the finished product. And you are doing this at a millions of products maybe every day at a global scale. And that is the complexity that you are dealing with here. So till the time you are not bothered with, because earlier, most of these companies will typically optimize for price, quality, and time of delivery because they wanted the shelves to be stacked in the right time, right season. So if Thanksgiving comes, they should have the complete warehouse properly stacked up. Now they're optimized for price, quality, time to delivery, and environmental, social, and ethical because of the regulations, and the consumers are saying that, hey, yeah, tell me where the product is made and how this is made. They were not optimizing. This took their, and also the second thing happened is before that, under the WTO regime, they had got a significant amount of long rope because they were said that you can actually produce any part of the world and the liability sits with the tier one supplier or the direct supplier. Now with these regulations, it made that liability is sitting with you. If you're putting your stamp on the product, you are responsible for it. If there is child labor, if there is forced labor, or if there is material coming from deforested land you are using, you are responsible for it. So fundamentally what happened for them, bolder regulations and the consumers started affecting the P&Ls of these big companies. And then you saw these big companies making announcement that 9 out of my 10 products by 2028-29 will be sustainable. It's easy to make that promise, and now the problem is then as it percolates down your hierarchy, they get concerned. I don't even know who the supplier is, so that data, principal data, is missing. For my bill of material, if I look at it, there are some 7-8 pieces. How do I typically start getting the deep tier information? If you want to do it manually, you will put a tremendous amount of manpower in place. You cannot do that. If you do sampling of this data, then you never know. Yeah, you can always guess. So that is where the power of verified, validated data at scale came up. And this problem is absolutely, I think you get it. It's ripe for digitalization, I would say. But in this current world, and given the supply chains go such long way, and in many places it is not very tech savvy. So we are as of now solving this whole problem through digitization, which I mean effectively there's still a lot of paper movement, handwritten or certificates and all that. We are digitizing it and creating a sort of a digital twin in our platform. So where we stand today, we have created a platform that takes care of the risk management, compliance data collection, and impact program monitoring. So if you have got a zero carbon footprint program or a water management program, we are helping you to keep a track of it. We solve these three fundamental business use cases using a product traceability and compliance data management platform is what we have developed. The platform is completely cloud-based. Initially, it was leveraging blockchain as the core technology, but given the governance in this in the fashion and textile industry, that was not very effective. So then we switched from blockchain orientation more towards intelligent OCR technologies, and now we combine it significantly with the AI-powered insights into the platform. We currently have close to around 70 odd well-known brands, right from the Adidas's of the world to the Pumas of the world, right? And then also then we have got Hugo Boss. So across all segments, we have got customers across sports and outdoor. We have got in retail, retails like ASOS and Orleans kind of companies. We have fast fashion companies like Primark. So in fashion and textiles, we are a dominant name in the traceability space. Now we have started expanding into food and beverages and other consumer product industry. That's where we stand. We are close to around 160 odd employees spread between Sweden. Sweden is our headquarters, Stockholm. And then in India, we are present in Coimbatore and Chennai. And then we have got sales and customer success setups in US and France.
Oh, what a journey, Shamik,
Yeah.
right? And how many years it has been?
We started Boxing Day 2016.
Wow.
Yeah, so not too far now. If on
Yeah.
by in 9 years by on 26th of December. But in earnest, I think we started in August of 2017. Before that, it was like more lot of market understanding, market data gathering, and building these formative and foundational relationships in that market.
That's critical. That's and you are filling that white space of bringing the technology as the core capability from you and your team. How has that evolved right now? Do you see, and you have been talking more about data and you have built this data foundation. How does your customer see Trusted today as a technology provider or as that critical trusted data provider?
So I would say both. We have to understand and there is a very nice company called 0100, and I think it stands for zero carbon footprint, and 100% digitalization. It is actually ex-Gartner. Somebody started the setup, and you can listen to the podcast and they cover it very, very well. The future of supply chain is 100% digitalization with a very, very low impact. Forget zero carbon footprint, low impact across the board, because that is the future. You will have circular supply chains. You will have very less dependency on virgin materials, because so much of virgin material in a sustainable way cannot be produced. So, if you look at it, this is the vision, right? Most of the companies currently, as I was saying, that they don't, in fact, 70 brands, fashion industry is a $1.5 trillion industry, right? 70 brands is what who have taken the interest in working with and trying to understand what the deep tier supply chain looks like for them. Even if I include my competition, my direct competition, indirect competition, all taken together, I think it is a very minuscule percentage of the people who are really cognizant and taking steps. So a lot of work has to happen. We believe that technology is the accelerator there, because, and we have seen that visibly, right? Initially, when Adidas started, we only had information about their 2,500 odd suppliers. Now, then we found this 2,500 suppliers are supplying to many other sports and outdoor companies. So that network effect starts kicking in. More importantly, look at the cost of compliance. It really starts coming down with this network effect. Earlier, Adidas was bearing the complete cost of collecting this data, whereas now this cost is getting shared by the other partner brands. So I think there is significant movement that has happened in the last 9 years. I think while we have moved, and I would say that, yeah, we have played some part in this acceleration, because we have also presented to them that, hey, if you work together, if you bring the village together, you will have a very a good effect on the system also there, right? And that is where we have done very, very well there, but still a long way to go in the process of collecting this deep tier information. And it is getting more and more complicated, because in this current world of multilateral trade, because the WTO regime has collapsed completely, right? Everybody is kind of doing deals on their own. So data of the supply chain and where it is getting produced, how it is getting produced, and you need this information in real time, because this tariffs comes today. Tomorrow there is no tariff, the whole regime changes. Supply chains do not change so fast, right? Until and unless you develop a very agile supply chain, you will have a significant challenge in your P&L also, because your landed product cost can go from maybe a $20 for a sweater like this to as much as $80 there. How will you manage that? You cannot keep on passing on all this cost to the consumer. So I think they are living in a world in which I think they need these kind of data, and seriously they need to move very, very fast to collect this data. Very interesting anecdote that one of our customers shared, and we were not aware of it. So we collect very, very granular at a product level, as I said, at a bill of material, each line item, where the product is coming from. We collect the transaction certificate. So we know the complete flow from tier 4, tier 5, right from the fiber to the full garment there. And we were collecting it because we thought that there are sustainability regulations, and then they're collecting this data. When COVID hit, so they had this issue that China is up, Eastern Europe is down, or Portugal is down, and then US is up. All of these challenges were they figuring. They figured out that using our data, which was collected for sustainability purposes, the supply chain teams were actually using that data to figure out, if I want to stack so many garments in this shelf, where should I source it from? And suddenly we had a great use case for supply chain efficiency and resilience. So that is the power of, like, once you collect this granular data, you can leverage it for multiple different purposes. Yeah, but to answer your question, I think, yeah, technology can accelerate it, but I think there has to be significant will has to be found in the industry. And I think, and unfortunately, it is getting driven by external things such as regulations, as well as the tariff barriers and all, rather than intrinsically, because ideally everybody should want to do the business in the right way, but that is unfortunately not the truth when it comes to supply chain.
Got it. Very interesting, Shamik. I mean, I wanted to double click a bit on what you were just telling now, right? Towards the end, you mentioned that your customers, and you gave a couple of examples, primarily started using TrustTrace for from a sustainability, regulatory, risk compliance perspective, but they saw situations like the COVID example you gave where they could reuse it for other purposes. But thinking strategically, maybe now what you are having or collecting is also like a gold mine of sorts, because this can be used for completely new value creation. For example, I can think of this can be used for new product introduction to identify which suppliers should be best suited from a sustainability, but also from the depth of the level of suppliers you have. Do you see this maturity coming from customers now, where they use trust trace also as like a, we call it in our book, like almost like a data product approach, where you have multiple data products and you can use them as building blocks to build new use cases out of it? Do you see this coming with your customer interactions, or how do you see it's being used?
So the front runners have started thinking a lot. Like Hugo Boss has built a complete business. So they have a new CEO, and then he created a complete digital first story where data is critical for it. They have built a digital hub in Portugal, and we can very well see that their approach is, my fashion products are my physical products. But apart from that, I am creating a lot more storytelling around how the product is being made. How do I ensure that my complete operations is very data driven, and I use data to take the right decisions at the right time. They always say that the fashion industry only makes money between the Thanksgiving and the Christmas. That is where finally they are able to generate some profit out of the business. Whereas well-run companies who are leveraging digital technologies and being very smart in utilizing, right? If you look at it, it is not that IT intensity or the digital intensity is very high, but they have ensured that the digital activities are in full alignment with the way they have created the people, the processes, and the technology aspects, and they get the maximum return on that investment through that focus. Some other things that I think most of the companies are will get forced, and I think smarter guys are doing it much better. Is so there's a digital product passport regulation which is supposed to hit. It has already gone into battery industry. It will hit the fashion industry and the consumer product good industry somewhere by 2027. Is the maybe it will get pushed by 28, 29. But everybody is aware. So which means that now getting this information is mandatory for you. And I think that has also started a good race towards getting this data, because once you have this data, you can actually turn it towards a circular economy kind of a models. Because currently with that data, you can actually create much better re-commercing opportunity, much better rental opportunities or leasing opportunities. So such kind of models will start developing. If you look at it, a lot of is happening in the fashion industry. You have this new age companies. So one such company in Sweden is Asket. So they actually tell the full journey of the product. They also tell you what is the landed cost, what is the profit margin they're making. And they say that I need this gross margin for me to survive as a business. So it is a very, very transparent storytelling that many of these guys are doing. And they can go and really giving a strong challenge to H&M or all these companies there. So I think things are changing in many ways, but in many ways it is not changing also. And the people who are changing are people who are going with the times in terms of technology adoption, leveraging the data, plus also very, very consumer focused.
Yeah, and I think giving the Hugo Boss example and the Asket example, I think you are talking the theme of our book as well, talking about the four pillars, the people you talked about, process,
Yeah.
technology, and data. So you are seeing some companies are already in an advanced stage of moving forward with that four pillar concept, and data becoming a true differentiator for them.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at it, I think the fashion industry or any industry has been in the data business actually, right? It is just that many of the people do not recognize it. Or the more senior you go, they are saying that, hey, data is not my problem, data is somebody else's problem. Look at food industry. In a food industry, you are existing as a brand because people trust the brand. In behind that trust, what is sitting is you will tell them transparently what is the ingredients you are using. Hopefully, they will stop using all this coded B11s, C39, and all that. But that has started happening, right? Look at all the emerging food brands or the cosmetic brands. They make it simple. Okay, I am using this natural ingredient and this synthetic ingredient, and maybe I'm using an emulsifier that I need, but rest of it is natural, right? And that transparent storytelling, and post COVID, I think that has become a very strong trend. So gone are the days when you will typically have a Coca-Cola secret formula, and I will not tell to anybody in the world. Here, you tell the formula, and that formula brings trust. Same is happening in the fashion industry or any consumer product industry, because an average consumer today wants to know what is behind. Yes, I don't have time to maybe make a soap at home, but I will buy a soap where I know the complete story of what the ingredients and where it is coming from. It is They're getting very, very aware, and I think I've heard enough about the millennials. I think in certain ways they are a generation which is very, very aware, and they are making many right choices. Still, I think they have not entered the mainstream buying. They don't have that much amount of buying power, but as this buying power will increase over a period of time, I think we'll see the emergence of, as I said, yeah, but they are also looking for the right equation. They want to pay the right price, what they can afford, right quality, right sustainability features. They, of course, they cannot buy the most supreme best sustainability product because that price is so high they cannot afford it, right? So I think they are making the market much more conscientiously, as well as much more sustainably.
Makes a lot of sense. I think the other layer, just to add a thought from the book, I think if we add this intelligence layer on top of this entire data you have today, that allows also different personas, because we are probably I'm sure you're dealing with different personas. There might be the regulatory person looking at it from all the ESG and CSRD and all these EU data protection, but that's one angle. The other angle could be, as you said, from a risk perspective. How do I look at tariffs? How do I look at situations such as weather? And recently we've had volcano eruptions. What kind of disruption that causes? That can be another angle. Another angle could be from a pure value, or and from a CEO perspective for these companies, it could be completely new business models. As you said, maybe you provide a new experience where new age customers can pick and choose ingredients themselves as well, and build a model. Or, as you said, in the case of the battery, that could even be a battery as a service model, right? So there are various possibilities unlocked with the data. Maybe having that intelligence layer is the next level from a maturity standpoint, to be able to harness a lot of this power.
Yes, and I think that has evolved in our platform also. So if you look at it now, we call our principal offering to be a data hub. So we have got a bunch of data collection tools where we are collecting highly good quality, verified and validated data. And that is our biggest differentiation, because you also have got our certain competition who typically scrape the internet and get some secondary data, tertiary data. But I think our biggest benefit is this network of suppliers and brand together, and then we have got very good quality primary data, where I can say that this is my source of truth, this is where the input is coming from. And on this data hub, then we have created a story of multiple different business apps. It can be related to risk management, it can be to do with different regulations, be it forced labor, be it EUDR, deforestation regulation, or packaging regulations. With that, we are actually, of course, in our we are dealing with the sustainability challenges, but we also see some of our customers coming and requesting us, and which become our co-development opportunities, that, oh, we have got a legacy platform where I have been using chemicals compliance for last 25-30 years, but I really am not able to leverage because the data collection is broken, it is very monolithic. Can you help us to transform those use cases? So that actually is opening a lot of new doors for us. I will just comment on this one. Overall, if you look at it, the future belongs to companies who are adaptive. we all have to get, or the businesses have to get prepared, as well as civilization has to get prepared, that what happens when you hit 1.5%. Of course, I think overall, I still believe in humanity, that humanity will take the right step, but I think we'll see some disasters happen, and then that correction will take another 2 generations to happen, or 3 generations to happen. So adaptation is very, very important. Like, you may not get the best wine coming from France now, right? It will shift to some other location. How, as a business, do you adapt to this change there? And if you want to create an adaptive organization, you need very, very good quality data, which you can trust, because you can have all the fancy AI, automation, all nice things. But if you do not have the core data in the right fashion and the right shape and clean, and more importantly, where you can say, hey, you can believe and trust that, okay, this is good quality data, then you can bring in all the insights, intelligence, everything using these fancy tools.
Very interesting, Shamik. And we discussed about technology and data, right? That's where we started. And then we also discussed about for the process, data is becoming so critical for your compliance process, regulatory process. Let us then also delve a little bit about the people and the data side. As you are also, and you touched upon it like that, the CEO is not seeing data as a responsibility for himself or herself, passing it down. And on the other side, you are providing the data platform. And as Sid was saying, companies need to look at transforming their business model by leveraging data, which becomes a CEO and a board topic. And that's one of the focus of our book as well, because we also see the same thing, like you mentioned, that the CEOs feel data is a tech topic, delegated downwards. However, also on the other hand, realizing and actually working upon all the digital transformation, transforming their business, leveraging data to do that. So we see a disconnect there. And you personally being a CEO, I think your insights will be really helpful. What goes in the mind of the CEO where you see data is so critical, even like for TrustTrace or even for your brands like Hugo Boss or Arcade. But then we go to the data responsible person. Are they taking the responsibility, or how lower down the chain are they pushing down the responsibility?
So I think I would say, from a customer's perspective, the companies or the CEOs who are taking data as an asset, I think they're going far, far ahead. And I think they are the darlings of the stock markets. And not only stock markets, also of their customers, because most of these companies are selling to the large retailers. They love it, because I think the control that they can show, because biggest criteria for a retail industry success is on time in full delivery. If the shelf is empty, it is like empty real estate. You're losing money in that, right? So retailer wants on time in full delivery. And how do you, if you have the right data only, then you can. And it is not only limited to the supply chain data. What product will you introduce? Because do you have the pulse of the customer? Because then you will say that, hey, I want to maybe introduce this year purple dress in this shade, because there is an El Nina effect in this thing. There's so many data points that you have to bring it together, and if you're smart enough, you don't need to get 10 people to do that. You can have one smart, so your people strategy also changes. You hire smarter people who can look at multi-dimensional data part of it, and then take the right decisions for you. So I think more than the data, the usage of the data and who is using that, it becomes very critical for them. And where I am seeing that the individuals who have got this perspective, I think they are far ahead. So if you typically look at in the fashion industry, it is the same 80-20. The 20% of the top tier best performers are having 80% of the profit in the industry, and those are the people who are typically leveraging this data very, very well. And the rest of the industry is, yeah, I think, yeah, they're just functioning for the sake of, because they have to grow at the rate of the GDP growth. I would say that that's what is happening there.
Thanks for the validation, Samik. And that's one of the things Sid and I are championing through the book, to elevate that importance of the data in the minds of the CEOs and the boss, so that they personally take accountability and responsibility for that, knowing that their business is so critical, so much dependent more and more on data. However, then we see the gap because then they see data as a technical topic. But you touched upon an important point, and also we have brought that in the book, that this head of data or the responsible person for the data, what should be the characteristics of that person? Typically, we have seen in the industry, they are tech heavy people. They come from a tech background and they do not understand the business or do not have a high EQ to build relationship with the business. But as you gave the example, and that's what we have been talking about, is that the data leader must be business savvy, have
Yeah.
that business understanding. And I think that should be another change in the people strategy, when a CEO or a board is looking for the next head of data, rather than looking in the IT organization inside or outside, look more in the business organization. What your thoughts on that?
I think that is quite yeah, it is right, and I think that is what has got reflected in these companies. So you typically have a CIO who is looking for more the internal processes, that part of it. Ideally, CEO. If I look at if all the books that came in the 2000 and 2010s, they said that the CIO will can CIO become the next level CEOs there? But I think somewhere that message got lost because CIO became so much internally oriented, and that's where the emergence of CDO happened. If you look at a CDO, I think most of the CDOs, if I see, they come from the business and then they see that I can leverage technology to bring in change. In fact, if I look at TrustTrace also, one of the biggest benefit, I think we are four co-founders. We all own certain functions there, but I think all of us earlier were very customer facing. And when we went back to, suppose I take care of investor relationship, then I am able to deal with that investor relationship from that angle of that. So Sarva, who owns the customer success angle of it, so there also he has been a salesperson in early days. So then he also brings that perspective. Madhav, who is my CTO as well as plays a significant role on the product organization, he's also coming with that perspective of understanding what the consumers want and all that. So hence, so for example, we were doing this AI hackathon, right? So we actually bucketed all the AI stories into a 2x, a 5x, and a 10x bucket. 2x is all like you want to automate coding, the vibe coding and all that. You will give you maybe 100% efficiency gain, right? Then 5x is when you start impacting the customer and say that, hey, you have this data. I will give you insight functionality through which you can now query and get greater value. So you maybe would have budgeted to buy TrustTrace to so that it gives you certain return on investment. But I will wow you by giving you something much more than this. And 10x is we would not have been it would not have been possible for us to expand maybe into a new industry or new use case completely. But using AI, can I do that in next 6 months time? So that is my 10x opportunity, right? And this is, if you look at it, while it goes back to the same fundamental story of what is your use case, what is your data, what is your key asset, but you have to keep that thinking of how do you typically deliver value to your customer and your other stakeholders. And that is what I think has been the best case for us. And that is why I think we have been able to succeed comparing to all other competition, because we have seen some of our competition doing very very well in the early days because they were coming from the fashion industry. They had the deep relationships and all that. But where we started overtaking them is how do you apply this capability and these assets of data and these principles of using the data for delivering more value to the customer there.
Very interesting, Shamik. And I found a pattern in the 2x, 5x, 10x story that you said. If you saw, the 2x story didn't really involve data. It's of course using AI, but it's using
Yeah,
AI to build some
yeah, yeah.
automation, which is good, but still not moving the needle by perhaps the margins that companies need to. Your 5x story, if I gathered it correctly, uses data, but uses data in a particular domain. It still requires granular data. But the 10x story that you said, it requires multiple different data angles and
Context.
points. That is
Yeah.
where the differentiation is created.
In the 10x story, if you look at it, AI will it is virtuous cycle of data and AI working
Right.
together to give you that context. I'll just give you an example, right? We are in fashion industry. We talk a product is a style, sub-style, color, all of these things, right? If I move to suppose food industry, it totally changes. It becomes product, SKUs, variants, right? Now, earlier I had to put in five coders and then say that can you go line by line item and make these field changes there. Now that AI, if I just say that, hey, I want to enter the food industry, Mr. AI, can you do this analysis and present the options? The through after the check has happened, you can actually then deploy those changes, right? And again, I'm giving a very simple example, but just that field change activity used to be such a significant bottleneck to make entry into other market, which is not now. Now, same goes in if I keep on going deeper. If you have to not change workflows, right? Because the sourcing models change from industry to industry. In fashion, you have got agents, multiple middlemen, and all that. Whereas in the food market, it is largely commodity driven, right? You do bulk purchases, you promise well in advance. So these things can actually then be done through a mix between an AI and data very, very faster for me.
Very interesting, Shamik. And I spotted a note in all the discussion we've had so far. Although at the beginning you said, hey, you and your co-founders come from a tech background, so you can build the tech moat, and that was perhaps the starting point to that first pivot. But the conversation and the knowledge you have picked up also from a business side, which is again reiterating the same fact, that it's first the business process, the business use cases, possibilities that will drive the data, that will drive the tech behind the scenes, right? So that is a key learn.
But in addition to that, Sid, I would say, Shamik, talking to you, you are talking more about data, and everywhere your data keeps coming up rather than so much about the tech, because tech is finally enabled, and that's again goes back to the four pillar concept. It is people, process, tech, and data, right? And I believe with AI, what has happened, the speed of disruption that you are doing, you can disrupt your competitors, the larger players, that has gone faster. And as Sid pointed out, all those 5x and 10x impact will necessarily require the data to play a critical role there.
Yeah. So we believe. I think so. We are of course as we are a scale up, right? We are in a very insecure position. We can get disrupted by a smart kit today. We can also get overthrown by a large player above. So you have to be in that deer mode, right? You have to run faster than the other deers, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at it, I think what we believe is our biggest differentiation is one is this. I think we have built a significant amount of brand of trust that hey, if you bring a product, if you bring a problem. So in the industry where people did not have too many success stories, we have shown that we can deliver 40, 45 plus successful traceability program there. And every traceability program that has happened for us, we have actually done better. The next program has been better. So suppose rollout of Adidas took us 2 years. The next program that we launched, we did it in 18 months. And now the recent most that we onboarded, we did onboarding in 35 days. So which means that knowledge we have converted into good schemas, and we are able to replicate on that one and improve on that one significantly. Like they have completely automated the onboarding process to a large extent that, okay, step 1 to 8, you follow this 8 process. Yes. Oh, you face some problem. Give me the feedback. I will improvise on that one. Right. And this becomes a very big differentiation when we go and talk to the next prospect. Also, that what we have been able to deliver to many of these customers is a day zero value, because many of these people, they say they struggle. If you ask me, any large company also, even if you ask, you say that I have got maybe 38% of your supplies in my platform, which means, oh, at least 38% of my supply chain, and that data is sitting in the platform there. They simply get wowed. Then of course rest of the whatever 62% that you have to cover is a different part of the story, and there also the same thing comes in, that top 20% of the suppliers would have covered at least 60-70% of their products there. So we are able to deliver some of the show that we can roll out faster, we can give you a day zero value, that becomes a significant moat for us there. And we have to keep on building on this moat, because otherwise, the startup guy knew some five member company will come and disrupt us. At the same time that you have got this big ERP, CRM players, they're always looking at, okay, what is the new additional module we can buy?
Exactly. Yeah, exciting and challenging and fun times as well. Listening to you, Shamik, you've built a lot of foundations. Now you've done day zero, 35-day go live. So I think all the agentic AIs are just waiting. Okay, just deploy us. We will make it to maybe 5 days or 10 days or a 0 day fully automated, right? And data is key to that. So with your data hub that you're building, not only as Sid said, it's a gold mine. And maybe you can elevate it. That's the fire that you can create a significant energy. And talking about the fire analogy, you need to also think, and your customers need to think about the negative aspect of data as well. As you're getting that, you have to make it more secure, compliant data, and moving with speed so that you're not getting burned down.
So some of our customers, in fact, have because I was mentioning some of our competition, they have been using secondary and tertiary data. And I think when you put that in the supply chain context, the problem they have faced is they have got so many false positives coming out of it, right? And a false positive in a supply chain is a very dangerous thing. A false negative not getting detected is one problem, but false positive, because it sends a red flag, it actually slows down your lot of your activities there. And so I think so that has again helped us to believe in this primary data story. Of course, we enrich that primary data with some amount of secondary data or other data sources coming from the industry and from the market also. But we always believe that the core data, the bill of material data, the place of origin, place of manufacturing should be primary data. Yeah.
Exciting discussion. Time just flew away. We are 50 minutes past. So, Shamik, as a signature question, we ask our guests just to maybe a little bit of a fun. So, if we have to personify data, Shamik, what would be in your minds? It could be either a real person or a fictional character. For what is data for you as a person?
I was watching old James Bond movie yesterday. So I will say it is James Bond, I think. And the reason I will call it James Bond is because it is the context, right? He's smart not because he's the smartest person in that world. He knows what the surrounding context is, which is data, I believe, there. And you are able to react to that using your skills in the right way. So he always needs some great tools, right? He needs to have that Aston Martin. He always needs to have this a special revolver and special gadgets. Dr. Q will give it to them. But always, I think it is the smartness that lies in how do you leverage your data and your assets, right? And also come out of the problems there and be the kind of personality. Because if you succeed, you are always the best hero, and you will always remain to be that there. So yeah, I think maybe James Bond.
Very interesting. And you can go and ask a question back to your customers. Who are your James Bond in your company, right? So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. In fact, one of our most successful customers, his data guy is actually James.
okay, that's good. Cool, cool. Lovely. Sid, any closing thoughts?
Really great conversation, Shamik. Thanks for first of all sharing in such transparency. You brought trust into the discussion as well, just like your company name is. So first of all, thanks a lot for sharing all this insights. Maybe as a couple of final questions, if you got chance to read the book, was there any key parts? I'm sure you are already working with a lot of data in your enterprise now, naturally, but were there any moments that you felt that were really useful from reading the book?
Yeah, I loved reading it. Of course, I did some fast reading in the later part of it. The early part, I think, I love this QCS a lot there, and I think that it doesn't need to be data. Also, I think it is generally, as I mentioned, we are in the space of compliance, and for us, I think this speed is very important, right? Because you do not need always real time data in the world of if the product movement is like you place the order this year and you will get in 9 months time, you have to pace it the right way, because you cannot put so much pressure on your supply chain. So that three dimensions of quality, compliance, and speed I actually use it in many of my customer discussions and my external discussions. So very powerful. Good, good. Thanks for the gift, I would say there. And yeah, I think it is a very good read. And of course, I have gifted it to a couple of my product developers as well as my IT folks there. I think, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, really happy to see that our work making impact for people like you and others. So really cool. And yeah, any closing thoughts from your side, Samik? Any message that you'd like to also give to your customers, partners, or network, or future employees?
I give to everybody. I think you have to look ahead, and the future is about good quality data, powered by, of course, the great leaps that are happening in the world of whatever AI today, AGI tomorrow, or something. But if you get your data in good control, you can see exponential growth in future. And if you don't do that groundwork today, then you will be stuck in cleaning that in 5 years time now, and then you will lose the business there. I think, yeah, data powered with all this great developments in AI, AGI, and all that, I think is a, yeah, great asset for us. And we all should, as smart human beings, we should typically make the most out of it.
Very well said.
Thank you, Shamik, for today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was another great episode, right, Sujay? I mean, there was such a great conversation, and I loved how the conversation delved into many of the topics in our book, but also delved into many of the business challenges, and also looking forward from a business standpoint.
It was quite unique listening to Shamik, him giving the perspective of a small or medium-sized company that TrustTrace is, while working with large brands like Hugo Boss or Adidas. So we covered a wide spectrum.
Indeed, yes. So let's start with the takeaways. My first takeaway was the great story Shamik mentioned about how TrustTrace, first of all, captures a lot of granular data, of suppliers of their customers beyond the first tier. He talked about second, third, fourth, till the nth tier, and then he mentioned the importance of this granular data, where initially the use case was around sustainability and regulation, but he mentioned how some of the other enterprises found value in this data, and he gave a great example of the COVID scenario situation where certain suppliers and certain regions were shut off. They could look at the data that TrustTrace provided to understand what is the other alternative supply chain possibilities, right? So that shows, in such situations, and tariff is another situation in the recent past which came into fruition. So it shows the value of data, in my opinion, and its reusability and the compounded value it could provide.
Yes, certainly. And I think learning from all these experiences, what we hear from Shamik, that they have pivoted TrustTrace from being a traceability technology provider only to having their principal offering of a data hub. Whereas he, as a CEO, and his teams have realized that data is their biggest differentiator. So, like as you said, not only they are collecting this primary data from all their suppliers across multiple levels, and that's a value their customers, the brands like the Adidas or Hugo Boss, are getting. And then the brands are realizing that this is a gold mine, and you could build business apps on top of it. So that's what Trusted is realizing, that the customers, that data of the suppliers, and there's a network effect, right? When you add in more brands, each brand bring its own suppliers, but you would see a lot of common suppliers in a particular industry like fashion. That's the key value. Brands then could build business apps like risk management, regulations like forced labor, child labor, packaging regulations. And also there could be new opportunities of, as Shamik mentioned, co-developing apps with customers in some of the new areas that the customer has identified. So that was really heartening for us to hear Data Hub being their principal offering right now.
Absolutely. I mean, very good point, Sujay. And I mean, he mentioned a very important point in that discussion we had with him, where many customers are focusing on their end customers and giving new customer experiences, but this whole product and supply chain complexity is a beast of its own as well. So my second takeaway is, that interesting discussion which actually you triggered, Sujay, around the people aspect of it, and then Shamik gave a great example of how they did an AI hackathon within TrustTrace, and from that identified what he called three categories: 2x, 5x, and 10x. 2x, where he said it's more around productivity and helping like a co-pilot kind of an assistance from an AI standpoint. 5x, where it's really impacting the customer and creating new value, or providing ROI in a much more accelerated format. And 10x, where it's really helping strategically, maybe coming out with completely new business value streams, etc. And I made the comment in the episode, but I also want to reiterate it because I felt there's a strong correlation of that 2x, 5x, 10x to the the intensity of the data as we put it in our book, right? And in the 2x, perhaps you just require some amount of information about the enterprise, just to help the co-pilot contextualize it to the brand. The 5x scenario, you really need more deep granular data, similar to what TrustTrace offers, and many customers have this, but it's all about activating it, like Shamik is and his organization are doing. But 10x is also where Shamik also mentioned the context angle, right? It's not just the data, and it's also something we've mentioned in our book, the intelligence and the context around it, right? And how that can create that 10x impact and new business value stream. So I love that part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think that was really exciting, and thanks a lot, Sid, for capturing that. And if I think now, Sid, these 5x and 10x also connects to reimagining the enterprise, like we had discussed in the
Yes,
first episode with Ganesh Natarajan. So I
absolutely.
think when you move to those 5x and 10x scenarios, you have to think about reimagining the enterprise. So we are seeing this common thread across multiple of our guests, and that's really good. And that's important for our listeners as well, to connect the dots within their enterprise and draw their own key takeaways. So, Sid, connected to that, I think there's a good discussion on the flip side of data. Like in the book, we call data as fire. So, right now, all the key takeaways that we mentioned was on the positive side of data, but it was really good that Shamik talked about the false positives, the impact that it creates in supply chain, and that was the one of the examples of the duality of data as a fire, the negative side where it could burn down an enterprise. So that was a really good example, and it highlights the point about this duality of data, and thus mandates the board and the CEOs to take accountability for data. So I believe that is an important key takeaway for our listeners to think through what's the negative aspect of data within their enterprises and how do they mitigate those proactively.
Yeah, fully agree, Sujay. I mean, especially with all the regulations we heard from Shamik as well in the EU, but I'm sure required and has an impact globally. But also the right point you made about the importance of data, because especially with AI, which has also been a common theme we've had across the episodes, I think there's huge that fire could be really having a huge impact, as you rightly said. My final takeaway is, again, I'm loving these perspectives we are getting here. Actually, in our signature question, I'm really happy with the variety of answers we are getting. So
Yeah.
that's actually good that each person has given a completely different answer. And I loved Shamik's answer also about correlating it to James Bond, where he mentioned about he put it very nicely. He mentioned about he how he is very well aware of the environment, which is coming back to that context part, which we talked about in the previous takeaway. But he also mentioned about the tools, right? He talked about all the fancy tools that James Bond has, but it's more important than the fancy tools how he applies them. And that's a very common thread as well, Sujay, we are seeing with enterprise, right? I mean, all enterprises have some kind of data collected, but it's all about how you apply them, right? So I love that James Bond analogy.
Yes, that was a very interesting response from Shamik. And like you said, we are getting interesting responses from different guests to our podcast. And I would say beyond the tools that James Bond uses to add more flavors, there are people who are helping James Bond in their missions. And then there are some processes James Bond follows and breaks as well. So it does bring about the people, process, technology, helping data to become successful, right? And taking on, Sid, my final key takeaway was more of a validation when Shamik talked about he appreciating the QCS framework,
Yeah.
and he is applying that in his business as well, beyond the data topic where Q is quality, of his business decisions, sees the compliance, following all his internal policies and external regulations, and as his speed of execution of all the business decisions. So I think that was really heartful for us to get a feedback or a confirmation that the QCS framework is really providing value to someone, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So with that, we are closing this episode here. So thanks to all the listeners and viewers to be with us for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it like the previous ones. And we look forward to seeing you in our next episode with another interesting guest. Till then, take care and have fun. See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.